Good afternoon, and welcome to the Board of Health meeting of November 20th, 2023. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording this meeting, please notify the chairman. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 20, until March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Board of Health is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling 1-508-945-4410, and the conference ID number is 409-003-841#. They may join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV Channel 8, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. And now I'll turn the meeting over to our chairman, Dr. Noble Hanson.
Thank you. It shall be the policy of this board to conduct its meetings under the open meetings law so as to encourage public participation whenever time permits and as part of agenda item discussions. We've got several items, but first let's establish a quorum, and when I call your name, please say you're here. Carol Gordon?
Here.
Dick Edwards?
Here.
John Beckley?
Here.
Carol Boyce?
Here.
And Noble Hanson, I'm here. First, before we get into our agenda items, Mr. Greg Berman is here. He is our new Director of Natural Resources, replacing Bob Duncanson. We're glad to see him here. Thanks for being here, and maybe he can come up and introduce yourself. Yeah, right up there is fine. It'd be great.
Sure. So some of you may have heard a little bit about my background, but this is a smaller group, and I'm happy to get more into any aspect of it. How far to go back? So I'm actually from Maryland originally. Met my wife, who's a native Cape Codder, and brought me back to Cape Cod, as I've heard happens fairly often around here. I did my undergrad and graduate work down in Florida. At the time, I was working for the U.S. Geological Survey as well to pay for grad school. A term appointment opened up in Hawaii, so moved out there for a couple of years. Worked as a GIS analyst, a hydrologist, and then moved back to the East Coast with a private company, working on environmental assessment and shoreline stabilization. That work wasn't necessarily in Rhode Island, so I would do a lot of work in Virginia, Georgia, Florida, where I got my professional geologist certification. And really that was the point of, finding a job where I can come home at night because we had small kids. And so for about 5 years I was with that company, and for the last 15 years I had been with Barnstable County's Cooperative Extension as a coastal processing specialist. And that's a joint position with the Woods Oceanographic Institution Sea Grant Program. So not to get too much into it, but there's NOAA, there's county, there's a whole lot of interaction with a lot of those agencies. Primarily, I provided technical assistance to towns, including Chatham, for really assessments of coastal landforms, of potential impacts of shoreline stabilizations, also providing support to Conservation Commission networks, did a lot of publications, outreach, conferences, things like that. Really have not had too much interaction with boards of health, which is why I think it's great that you have a very qualified and experienced agent here with Judy. I'm going to be leaning on her, and I hope she knows she can ask me for anything going up through the town. But yeah, basically, I have interacted with other boards of health. Our previous agent in the town of Bourne came from the Board of Health, and I know there's a lot of interaction between conservation and health. And I think that's hopefully part of what we can do, is do a little bit more crosstalk and communication between our various parts of natural resources. And obviously, you can speak to Judy anytime, and you also know how to get in touch with me. So I'm very happy to be here and happy to chat as projects come up.
Okay, great. We're happy to have you. And Judy, do you have anything to add? Because,
No, Greg's just been with us for a week, and we're trying to bring him up to speed on all the exciting things going on with the Board of Health, and, yeah, as he said, I'm here to help him, and he's here to help me if I have any issues. But he has extensive experience in natural resources, so it's really great.
great. Any of the board members have a question or comment?
No, just need some time now, right?
Absolutely. Well, I've been here a week, so I should have settled in. I have not grown bored or grown moss at any stretch yet. And if you think of questions later, please
It's a
get in
nice
touch.
town to work in.
Yes. Yeah, I've been very impressed with just how accepting and open and really competent everybody in the department and really throughout the town has been.
Right.
And that kind of, it hasn't been long, but that communication gives me a lot of hope for what we can accomplish.
That's right.
Bob Duncanson would sit in on some of our meetings, and we would use him as a resource for history of the regulations in the town, and he knew a lot about how things work. But is that something you envision continuing with yourself?
I think we have to see. I'm certainly here for all of this meeting. I'm going to have to assess, just because there are other boards that I will be liaison with.
Yep.
And I think we really just need to feel it out. Let me know if there's projects or questions
Yeah,
that
we can
you would
do
like
that.
me to weigh in on, or if there's a specific meeting. If there's not something specific, maybe I wouldn't show up to everyone, but
Yeah.
if it turns out that that's the best way to do things, I'm not opposed, but just to get a
No,
feel
that
for
sounds
how-
fine. Just communicate with Judy, and we can get that all worked out, I think. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Dick?
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Duncanson used to come on a regular basis to apprise us of changes and things like the updates on the water problems, the PFAS problems during COVID, hospitalizations, things like that. It would be really nice if we could plan on having you here at least, say, every other month to a visit, just regularly, because those issues are going to be coming up, and we'd like your input.
Absolutely. So it certainly, if something comes up, I'm more than willing to join in a meeting. There's a lot of things where we may not wait for a meeting, that Judy will have access to that information. And not that I am opposed to attending in any way. My background is coastal geology, landforms, marsh, things like that. So with regard to, COVID and PFAS, I'm not as the expert in the room. But that said, we will reach out and have the information and be able to provide that. But, different backgrounds, different shoes.
Yep.
No, that sounds fine, I think, and it'll just be communication between Judy and you. If we need you, or we can work that out as we go along. So I think that's great. Thank
Right,
you
and
very
I'm
much.
certainly not opposed to regular updates, so.
Yeah,
Thank you for
Great.
coming by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, Greg.
Okay, so we can move on to the regular part of our meeting. First, we have a request for extension from sewer connection order for James Murphy, 18 George Ryder Road. And Judy has given us a little summary here. Is there someone here to present that request for an extension? 18 George Ryder Road, James Murphy. Judy, have they?
I don't, is there anybody online that is representing this? I don't see anyone. I did reach out to them and told them we were having this hearing. I think we can discuss it. If you would like to make a decision or wait and have their representative be here, we could table it. It's not something that's very time sensitive at this point. They were ordered to connect just about coming up on a year ago, and they have requested a total of 10 years instead of the required 2 years. They did install a new septic system. They said recently, but it was actually in 2017, which is 6 years ago. So it isn't, they have a conventional septic system, it's mixed-use commercial. I think there's an apartment in the building as well. I wouldn't, I just think that they could be given a couple more years, maybe until 2027, and that would have given them a total 10 years to use their septic system.
Is there precedent for trying to allow a fairly newly installed system to serve
We really haven't,
for like 10 years in the past?
the only thing that we have in our regulation is that if they have an innovative alternative septic
IA.
system, that they get 10 years to use it before they have to.
Almost by
install it.
right, or, yeah.
So,
They
so
were.
we haven't given an extension for a Title V system installed for that 10-year period? That'd be a new precedent for us?
We haven't, and yes, it would. We're really just giving them an additional 2 years over the 2 years that, and we've done that numerous times, giving people more time for different reasons. These people own 2 other commercial properties in that area, and I think if you read their requests, there's some financial hardship to moving forward after having connected 2 other buildings and then put in another new septic system about 5 years ago, so they're just asking for some more time. So it's up to you whether you want to table it or move forward, and I can let them know, and if they're not happy with it, they could always,
This is their first order to connect,
their first order to connect.
and it's,
I think 2 years sounds, 2 more years sounds fair.
Yeah.
And maybe we can address it tonight and get it done with.
I would concur with that.
Yeah, the 2 extra years seems reasonable. I just worry a little bit about the precedent, the 10 years if you do the Title V, because we have 10 years for IA. Are we extending it to Title V, or are there special circumstances here that make this
Well, I think-
reasonable for this person?
I think that every case has to be looked at independently, and again, because this particular person owns these several properties and has, had to do all of this at one time, we did give some other commercial property owners a more phased-in time period to connect properties in town as well. So,
We can base it on that, though, rather than the fact that there is a 5-year-old Title V system in place.
right, I think that there's more, there's extenuating circumstances
Right.
on this one.
And we can, and they are almost they're only 2 years away from the 10-year thing, so this isn't the whole 10 years.
Right.
It's just a limited extension.
Right.
So
Right.
I guess that makes it different. What are other people? We could ask them to come in and make the case themselves. We have pretty much the information here, and Judy has given it, so.
Well, if we approve like the 2 years, and then if they have questions, they can always come to Judy, would that be right? Would that work?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
They could, after the end of 2 years, they could come back and request more time.
Right.
So this just gives them,
So I'd say, does somebody have an objection to it? Does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we extend the time for 2 years,
Period.
period,
so it would give them until 2027.
yes.
I'll second it.
Okay, 2027. All right, and then we can, any public input on this 18 George Ryder Road?
After this.
See none.
Don't see any. Okay, we can probably take a voice vote on approving the extension for sewer connection order, 18 George Ryder Road. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Okay, hearing no, so we will grant that extension for 18 George Ryder Road. Okay. The next item is request for extension from sewer connection order / real estate inspection for Lisa Harrell, 6 Ethelma Drive. Is there someone here to present that case? Yeah, you can have the, stand up there where the microphone is. Be great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And Judy has given us a little summary of what's going on, but maybe you can just present the history and what's going on from your standpoint and why you're making the request, so we know.
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for being here at your hearing. I am a very happy owner of the house at 66 Athelma. And when we purchased it, it received a conditionally passes regarding the septic. And at the time, we were going to make the repairs, and then we determined that more than likely, we're going to do a gut reno or possibly a complete tear down, of course, town approval. And as a result of that, we are not even into that process yet. So the deadline in order to have the septic tank repaired was fast approaching. So I had requested to have, I guess at the time I asked for an extension, but we're going to be hooking up to town sewer, so we're not even going to be using the septic. In the meantime, what we've done is we've winterized the property. Nobody has been in the property since we've purchased it. No one's going to be in the property. The water's been shut off. The town has shut it off at the street. We've turned off the electricity at the breaker box. The oil tank has been removed. The permit has been submitted to the Chatham Fire Department. So at this point, I think it's in your hands as to what you tell me we're allowed to do.
So you're requesting that the extension from the sewer connection be extended until you finish the new home and you put in a new septic, or
So
you do the hookup?
we're not going to do the septic.
Right.
So we're not going to, initially, I thought I had to hook up this, repair the septic,
Yep,
but then we realized we were going to connect to the town sewer.
right, so you'll be connecting.
So we'll be connecting to the source. So the issue of the septic tank itself has pretty much gone away,
Okay.
I think. I don't know.
Did they pump the system when they inspected it, you know? Has it been pumped if it's leaking?
I don't know how to answer that.
I would have to check the report, but usually when they think they're leaking, they leak at the seal, and they just go down to below the seal and they stop. There may be some evaporation, but the issue with this is that under our septic real estate transfer regs, they have to repair the system within 90 days of the transfer. So she got a letter that says your system fails until it's repaired, and then they were also ordered, the old owners were ordered to connect to sewer. So both things, and now, since they're planning on rebuilding and not using the septic at all, they're just gonna connect to sewer when the house is ready to be occupied.
And then you've agreed to keep the house vacant and the water and electricity shut off?
That's all been done.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, correct.
Okay, other questions from the board? And then, so would you put those things as conditions, Judy, that the house
Yeah, that it remain,
vacant and water and electricity shut off, and that it will be connected to sewer when their new home is completed? That will
Right.
be in-
so you just need a motion on that.
Any other comments or any input from the public?
I see none.
Okay, seeing none. Can I get a motion then? Or another comment? A motion to approve the extension until they hook up the sewer.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, and then a second?
Second.
Uh,
And then Judy, you want to just make up verbally the conditions?
So the motion would be that the variance is granted on the condition that, sorry. The motion would be that the variance is granted on the condition that the house remains vacant, water and electricity shut off until such time as the dwelling is constructed and connected to town sewer.
Good.
Okay, good. Okay, I think we can take a voice vote on that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, so we will grant that extension for 66 Thelma Drive with the conditions that Judy will put in that for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, the next item will be for Judy to give us an update on the short-term rental registration, the online part of it. I think she has some information about that, and to follow up on the position that has been posted.
The registration actually did go live last week, but we haven't advertised it. We haven't sent the press release out yet. We were hoping we were going to get a few people to test it. And I haven't seen that anybody, the few people we asked haven't done it, as far as I know, tested it. But we were waiting on the press release. We had some questions, legal questions about the wording for the smoke and carbon monoxide detectors on the affidavit. We had a little bit of disagreement as to whether legally they should be required or not. I was strongly in the, yes, they should be required camp. And we got a legal counsel in, and he said, yes, based on the housing code, which says that it's required that they meet the requirements in accordance with the state building and fire code. So it's an affidavit that they sign. It doesn't put any liability on us because we're not inspecting. It's just saying that they understand that they are required to meet the regulations. So that's where we're at, and I believe Shauna will be sending that press release out very shortly. As far as the inspector's position, I haven't been notified by Human Resources. I understand they have some applications, but they were gonna pick through the resumes and then select the ones for interviews. So we'll see.
Good.
Hopefully in the next month or so, we'll get that going.
Hopefully. And then, when the website goes live, will there be public notification so that,
Yeah, that's what the press release will be.
press release?
Yes.
Okay. And then, just briefly, when you go on the town website, how are you going to get to this short-term rental registration? Does it come through Board of Health?
There should be a link.
Link, yeah.
Well, I can't show it to you. I think Craig showed it to you. It will be a link on the town's webpage for OpenGov, and people can go in, set up an account, and it'll bring them right into the, the health page and the registration.
And he was going to put a flyer on it, so it was sort of red flagged at the top of the website to alert people? I just happened to be on it today for something else, and it wasn't obvious.
Yeah.
You get
I'll
onto it,
double
but
check
that's
with them. I'll double check with him and take a look at
Okay,
it.
great.
I haven't, we've been, as I said, going back and forth on the minutia of this fire code thing. But it will get put out there with a link to it in the press release.
Can we also put something in the Chronicle as to how to use this link and everything so people aren't confused if they don't
I think,
go to the town?
I think they were gonna do an article, but yes, we'll make sure
Okay,
that
so that
Tim knows.
it's
and-
all spelled out very clearly and they can just follow it. Okay.
Yeah, it's very simple. I mean,
Good.
a lot of people have been using our, in the building department, been using this website already, so it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any public comments on short-term rental registration and position? I don't think so. Okay. The next item is a review discussion regarding nitrogen loading regulation, and that would have to do with the changes we made on adding bedrooms going from Title V to IA technology. Since our last meeting, our last single meeting, we had the joint meeting with the Select Board, and a number of issues was raised there about that process and the actual regulation and our authority and a lot of complicated things. But the first thing is the legality of our public hearing was questioned because of the dates of notification, public notification, and the first one not being 2 weeks before the actual hearing. So we did, and Judy may want to amplify this, we did talk to Pat Costello this afternoon. Judy and I briefed him on it. He has written an opinion that we just got handed out. I just saw it. I haven't really read it yet, so I haven't had a chance to really digest it. But that is something that all of you need to look at. If you haven't seen the joint meeting with the select board, you should take a look at it. And I'd ask Judy just to give a little brief on the Costello opinion today, and I think that then there will be other issues about the actual regulation, whether it's within our authority to do it or not do it, and I think that's probably the main part of it. But Judy, you want to?
Yeah, I just, first of all, want to apologize to the board for the mistake that was made. You know, after 30 years of doing this, it's not good that we made that kind of a mistake. I think we always assumed it was just 2 weeks, 2 consecutive weeks prior to the meeting. The 14 days got past us. It's interesting because Board of Health have broad, you know, ability to make regulations. And any other regulation that has nothing to do with Title V, we're not even required by law to have a hearing, which is very interesting. Of course, we always do because we want to make sure that the public knows what we're doing and give people the opportunity to talk about it. Then there's a more restrictive part of the reg that says if it has anything to do with Title V, you have to do, or you're supposed to do the 14 days, 2 hearings, 2 consecutive weeks, the first one being 14 days prior to the hearing. So we were, I think, at 11 days. So we laid that out. The question, first of all, was it enough to do with Title V? And he felt that, yes, it is in the realm of Title V, which I agreed with. So we would, under the strictest accordance with the law, should be, you know, publishing it 14 days prior. But he did say that, you know, he feels that if there was a challenge to the validity of the regulation, the court would probably, based on some precedents, apply all rational presumptions in favor of the validity of the administrative action and not declare it void. Basically, he's saying as long as we didn't do anything that was unduly prejudicial or detrimental to the public interest, that the courts would probably uphold it. That said, you know, we do want to dot our i's and cross our t's and do the right thing. So our discussion has been that perhaps we should look at having another hearing advertised properly and ratifying our decision. In the meantime, if we decide to make some changes, either in the regulation or to our policy, those are things we can talk about leading up to the public hearing and make changes in the reg if we decide to move forward and then republish it.
Yeah.
So that's basically it in a
So I think
nutshell.
Basically,
Nutshell.
you know, he said that legally it's technical and arguable, but it would be a big case. The other issues had come up about the 2-bedroom and so forth, so, you know, the first thought, but I want you all to look at this, and then we have to discuss it at the next meeting some more, I think, but would be to, as Judy said, move forward with another public hearing, maybe with some more public input so they can have a chance to say something. We may want to modify slightly what we're doing, so it would be voting again on what we passed, maybe with some changes. Those are things, that's what we can discuss about it, but kind of keep on the same track. The 2-bedroom thing was the thing that came up at the joint meeting and that we had discussed before a little bit. I don't think we're going to settle all that today. I think I'd like to, my own thought is that we read over Mr. Costello's opinion and then continue the discussion about the way forward at the next meeting. But questions or comments from people? Carol?
Can we set a date for the next public meeting?
The next what?
For the public hearing, can we set a date for that now?
Well, I think there's some things to discuss about what we're going to do, and that we have the holidays and all. I mean, we can pick a date.
Okay.
I think we want to figure out exactly what it is we want to do. If we're going to change the language at all, I think at this point, we would want to get some sort of a written thing from the town attorney that what we're doing is right within our scope, and have all that sort of settled beforehand. So that may take a little bit of time. And then we want to get that settled, then sort of publicize what we're doing, then make the public hearing, and have a vote. And the other issue that came up is how much time should there be between voting on the issue and when it takes effect? And I haven't read this, but what I remember from what the attorney said was this afternoon was there is no absolute number, or there's no particular precedent that jumped into his mind that we can sort of move ahead pretty quickly. But it's up to us to think what's reasonable.
He basically said upon publication is when Board of Health regulations take effect. And,
So it's-
we can decide when that is, and it's up to the boards to decide that.
Should we have a, should
But
we
he
have
didn't say that, in general, you towns, wait 6 months or wait 1 year, that's
Right.
not, in
Yeah,
his
that's not
mind was
in there,
something that we
right.
had to do. It's up to us, and we, want to try and, if we go through the thing again, to try and, be reasonable and whatnot.
should we have a working session to go, to really get into this?
Working session would, if it's a non-public meeting, it would be just two of us
Okay, oh, I see.
and Judy.
We
So, but
certainly
we
can
can talk
have,
about it at the meeting, I think. Once
Yeah.
you digested this and put down
Okay,
and maybe some language, and just have a discussion like this, and
I
do
mean-
it over, it might be a couple of weeks, but we've got, a meeting, December, then we're into December, and then whatnot. So it's probably gonna be, early January sometime, I guess.
I would say, January would probably be the earliest that we could actually put together a public hearing. We have a meeting on the 4th, a meeting on the 18th. And then, I think on the 4th, maybe we should discuss after you've read this, whether this is how you want to proceed. I mean, getting the feeling that may be how you want to proceed, but, and then we can have a meeting either on the 18th or whatever the first meeting is in January, or we can have a special meeting. We could have another meeting added to the agenda, added to the schedule if you want, but it's up to you. And discuss any possible changes or language, or how you want to address the concerns that
And I
may come
think
up.
when we're farther down the process and we have some language, I think it's probably best for us to go back to Mr. Costello, run that by him, and get a written statement, so we have something that we're on firm ground and we know what we're doing legally. Dick?
All right. I think we've all been thinking about this since the last meeting, and I think just pushing this way out into the future is not a good idea. As I read this, what was brought up at the select board meeting was some people feel that they're blindsided by this because they just bought a house with a plan to add another bedroom, and this came kind of out of the blue. So that's a problem. Whether or not 2 bedrooms versus 3 bedrooms versus 4 bedrooms is a problem, we would need to consider that. The third issue was whether the issue of turning these properties into short-term rentals after an additional bedroom is added could conceivably be an issue that the owners could address at the time of asking for the variance. But when I read the writing of the document that we have here, it sort of limits really what we can do, because it says existing properties that already exceed the requirements of sections 5.1 and 5.2 will not be allowed an extra bedroom, period. It doesn't really leave us room for making exceptions. It says we may give a variance, at the beginning, but then that sentence says we will not give a variance if they already have more bedrooms than would be allowed under 5.1, 5.2. So I think the first thing that we would need to consider is ways that we could change that sentence to allow us as a Board of Health to have some leeway to provide people with relief in special circumstances. So for example, if we were to say, okay, somebody has 3 bedrooms on a 15,000 square foot lot and wants a fourth bedroom, but they promise on a stack of Bibles that they're not gonna make that into a short-term rental, then we might be able to consider that as an exceptional circumstance if they were to put something into the deed saying that this would never be a short-term rental. Right now, I don't see that we can do that because of the way this is written. So if we were to just think about if we could change that sentence to saying existing properties already exceed the requirements will generally not be allowed extra bedrooms, although the Board of Health could consider a variance in exceptional circumstances. And then whatever those circumstances are, it wouldn't limit us. But right now, it says we can't do that.
How would we
Yeah,
define exceptional?
let me just say, I think, first of all, I haven't had a chance to really look at this.
Well, this is the document that we wrote.
Oh, no.
Page
I'm talking about the
six,
opinion
page
from-
6 of the Board of Health nitrogen loading regulation.
Talking about the opinion from,
The opinion just says that it did fall under nitrogen loading.
I haven't had a chance to read the
Well,
written opinion.
it's a one-page thing. It's not,
And-
it basically says, yes, we do need,
Yeah.
we might not have to have another public meeting because in general, the courts are lenient to boards of health, but it's got nothing to do with what we actually said here in our document. It has nothing to do with, it says that what we did, and that's okay, but we might need to have another public meeting. That's what he's addressing in that document.
Yeah.
But if we're thinking of addressing all the people in this room and all their concerns, then we can't, I don't think, be locked in to what we have here, which is the word will not be allowed another bedroom.
Well, I think
Instead
that-
of changing the wording of that
Yeah,
sentence, I'd
that's a-
love to allow, Mr.
The issue-
Costello to.
You're
weigh in on
thinking
that.
about the two-bedroom thing.
No, not 2 bedrooms. I'm thinking about the whole spectrum of things. 2 bedrooms,
Yeah.
short-term rentals, people that bought a house 6 months ago with the expectation they were going to be able to bring their grandparents here, but now they can't because we tell them that all of a sudden they can't have a 3rd bedroom. And that the board, I think, should be allowed some leeway in making these decisions. And I don't think that's, I'm not a lawyer, we've got plenty of lawyers in the room, but I'm not a lawyer, but I think the way that's worded, will not be allowed to have an extra bedroom, is pretty,
Can I just, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think we have a process now that we have to go through because we have a regulation that, may or may not be defensible in court. Our town council feels, yes, it is, but if the board now has to decide whether they want to ratify their original regulation or make changes to it, either way, they need to have a hearing.
right.
A properly advertised hearing, so I think that's what's on the table for the board to decide. And then we can have that discussion as, okay, if you want to change the wording, how we make it more amenable to the concerns of the public and move forward with
Well, I
that.
would say right now that we definitely have to have another hearing.
Yes,
But before we have the hearing, we should know what we're gonna put in the regulation.
Absolutely.
Of
We have
course,
a
yes.
process. We're going to have to, and I don't anticipate doing it all at this meeting, although we can discuss it. Develop, if we want new language, develop what that language would be.
and discuss it.
And then I think we would ask the attorney, is this within our scope? Because we've been questioned. Do we have the authority to do that? Because we've been questioned. And then put together the exact language, have a public hearing, advertise it in advance to give people more notice, and then proceed down the path that way. It's pretty much what you're talking about. And I think how you put that language, the will, and you encompass other problems is, to me, it's not so easy because we want to have some flexibility perhaps, but we have to be careful about the precedent we set because we always think about that. So to me, it gets more complicated. But anybody else have a question?
So are you thinking that we should go through what we have here and see if we have any questions, look at the language, and make any comments, so that we're ready when you come back and we discuss
Well, I
it?
mean, I'm talking about going through, I haven't had a chance to really go
Right.
through Mr. Costello's,
Exactly,
that one.
okay.
And then think about how you might want to change the language of what we wrote last time to
That would be-
change.
That would be this.
That would be
Right,
that.
Right, so,
And accommodating some of what Dick talked about, put that all together. Then I think we would have the attorney look at it and give us some advice about whether we have the authority to do that. There's something we don't see in it. And because it's been questioned, and it's been questioned how we look at these variances. So we can get that settled after we get more information.
So are you saying that for now you want to suspend this regulation?
No.
And, well, I mean, what?
No, I think
you want to continue to deny variances until this gets resolved?
Well, we did discuss that. because
And wait
we're-
months until this is done?
It's not gonna be months. I mean, we could get this done by mid-January, I think, reasonably. I mean, we do have to have discussions. I don't think it's something that we need to look at the wording, make changes, that I can put together suggestions for you, you can vote on. And then we have to advertise 2 weeks beforehand. We have the holidays coming up. It's just, legitimately, we can't do it at our December 18th meeting because we haven't even discussed it yet, and, we need
My
time
understanding
to.
was the attorney didn't, first of all, he said that it's technically the legal of whether that hearing was legal or illegal was not so simple. But it basically, the idea of going through the process and having another hearing and maybe making some changes, we talked about that. And I think until we do that, I think what we have now would stay in effect short-term. And we didn't get into a lot of the process of if we to go through all that, I don't know.
If somebody did choose to, well, I don't think there's anything on our agenda coming up, but if somebody did choose to present something to us at one of our upcoming meetings, the board could table it until we have a final decision, or they could make a, decision however they see fit, as opposed to in regards to the one that we did deny last week or 2 weeks ago, those folks, I'm sure, they're here, and I'm sure they're gonna be watching the process, and they're always welcome to reapply, so, I think that's really the only thing we can do. Our regulation stands until we change it, or unless it's challenged and goes through the courts, and that would take time, and I think the board is, open to looking at this, and making changes based on the public outcry, and
Yeah.
and it's too bad we didn't hear some of this before, before we made the changes, but, I guess the process was somewhat at fault.
So as I see it, what I would suggest is that we continue talking about what Dick was talking about with the new language and changes, put that together, put it in writing, get it reviewed by the attorney, set out another public hearing, and then have another vote reaffirming what we did after the review and adding any new language we wanted to add, and try and do that in the short term.
We can have this on the agenda for the 4th and the 18th, and then schedule the public hearing for,
Well, we're in the middle of, holidays, but yeah, so it's probably gonna
Well,
be early January.
I'm here
we're in the
working,
middle
so
of
I can
holiday
put
season.
together the
That's right.
language and work on it easily. We have our regularly scheduled meeting, so that would be when we would have the hearing, probably. I don't think we could possibly do it for the
Well, we would-
18th.
We would want to somehow make the public hearing more widely known
He-
for people, so if they want to come in and say something, they feel they have the
And,
opportunity.
Attorney Costello did also say that he feels that the wording that we use in the public hearing should be a little more detailed. We always have just done a brief, changes to the nitrogen loading regs. They're available at the health department for review. He suggests we make it a little bit more explicit, so anybody reading the public notice would kind of have a better idea of what exactly we're changing. So he said that he'd be happy to look at that as
I don't
well.
think we didn't have a complete discussion of that particular thing, but that will come with more language. We talked more about the public hearing and all, and the last one and all. So, John, you have some experience here?
Well, I'm not quite sure what to do right now. One part of my brain is saying, leave it as it is and just move forward in a reasonable pace and get it clarified in January. The other part of my brain is saying, what's the harm in withdrawing the existing one right now to buy time to go through the process of gathering public input, studying the input, the recommendations, and then deciding whether we want to revise or update or change the existing regulation, and then bring it back forward when it's ready. I could do either. I could do either way right now. If we think we can get through the next 2 or 3 months without there being problems,
probably
then I'm saying, well, then do,
6 weeks.
yeah, I mean, if we think we can get through that time without having major disruptions, that's reasonable.
Is it possible not to review any variances till after that time?
We could just,
Suspend reviewing all variances for.
yeah, I mean, does that affect anybody?
Absolutely, if it came up, which it hasn't, I mean, to hold off until the beginning of January wouldn't be a big deal for them, and then we would have, more clarity. So
I guess at the bottom, is our current regulation, as it sits today, legal? Or is it fuzzy?
He,
I didn't read his.
I mean, if it's legal unless it's challenged in court,
Right, okay,
and he feels that it would hold up.
okay.
Or people who have a variance could decide. They could either come with this regulation and.
Or hold off until we
Or
make
hold off
revisions.
until later.
Until the
you know,
dust settles
or
and
just
they
a
have
few
a
more
clear
weeks or
sense,
something.
right?
That's
And
the
that
way
would-
I see it.
That's
You
not
know,
bad, that's not a bad pathway
I
forward.
don't think it's going to take us that long to make some suggested
No.
changes and have a.
At least consider the suggested changes. You know, we have, now that we know we've touched the nerve, at least in some sections of the community, all right? We revisit it, we do another objective effort to listen and take advice, take counsel, and then we reconsider. Doesn't mean we need to change, doesn't mean we're going to change, but we reevaluate now that we've heard more feedback from interested parties. But just do it the proper way, which is, you know, a fair reconsideration.
Right, and we won't be rewriting the whole thing.
No,
anyway,
but
so
we
it
should give
shouldn't take
people
that
who
long.
have a perspective, a point of view that they feel they want to make, have them give us their feedback. I'd prefer it in writing, actually, rather than just react on the night of the hearing. I would say, you know, summarize their,
And then in the short term, leave in place what we have. Is that what you said?
either way, yeah, if we think we can
I think-
we can finesse it and move forward and not have a lot of problems.
The attorney, to me, he stopped short of saying, yeah, it's on face automatically, it's illegal, period. He
Right.
said it was arguable. He
Okay.
said you could make a case out of it, you know, and this and that, it could go your way, and, but I think what I was thinking and what Judy was thinking is avoid all that, keep what we have in the short term, and move on a process where people would have input.
Yep.
New hearing, some new language, and try and correct some of the things that people felt were short in the other one, in the
Right.
process,
Yep.
and then move ahead, and that's sort of like through the holidays. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, he said that the Board of Health does have a, broad power to regulate, make regulations
Right.
within reason, and that's a very broad,
There's two separate questions. One question is, was the public hearing not legal because it wasn't 2 weeks later? And does that taint this regulation? That's one question. And that may or may not be a big problem, according to Mr. Costello, but the better part of valor would be to just go ahead and have another public hearing. The second question is, do we have the right to do this at all? And that's, Noble is sort of raising that question. We asked Costello about that way back at the very beginning. And neither Dr. Duncanson, nor I believe him, or anybody else said, no, you can't do this. You have to just limit what you do to just, how much nitrogen goes in the ground. And if they put it in an IA system, then it's less nitrogen, so you can't do this. Nobody has said that, other than maybe some of the attorneys, one of which left. That is, I don't believe that's a problem. And the gist of what Mr. Costello said here is, the board has broad powers. And it's not just limited to nitrogen going in the water, so that anything that doesn't increase nitrogen, we can't touch. But you can ask Mr. Costello to just write us a document that says, that's the case, that you're not just limited to that one topic. You're in charge. You're charged with protecting the overall health and welfare of the people, and we deal with nuisance complaints and a lot of other complaints that don't have anything to do with nitrogen in the water. So, but if he first of all says, yeah, it would be a good idea to have another public hearing, and then secondly says what you're doing other than that public hearing business is perfectly appropriate, then we're on safe ground, and then we can.
I agree with what you said. I'm not raising the question myself about our authority. I'm raising a question that was brought up to us at the joint select board meeting by Mr. Shell, who is an attorney, and he specifically cited song and verse and said it was illegal. So I think that raises the question, and then we'll get that straightened out. But I agree with what you said, and I think you're agreeing with the process we're forward here, so I think that's what we should do.
And I really don't think Mr. Shell actually said that, what you're saying. I think you're taking this kind of out of context.
I think Mr. DeCastro said that, about giving our board the power to regulate and to protect the environment of Chatham. And so, I think they're behind us.
Okay.
It seemed like they were.
All right, so I think we have a sort of a plan to move forward. All right?
So I will, I'll start researching some changes that we can make in wording to make it more palatable. I have a few ideas of things we can take into consideration that won't change the board's total intent, but may make it a little bit more flexible for some of these two-family homes,
Yeah, anything you can send out that we all can look at to help think
two-bedroom
about.
homes. Excuse me?
Anything you can send out to all of us to help us
Yes.
think about it.
Yes, I can, and I think that's, again, we'll put it on the agenda for the 4th and the 18th, and then if we feel like we've come up with something we agree upon, then we can go from right there to public, scheduling the hearing and advertising, so we'll make sure we have it 14 days prior to the date we choose.
Okay, Carol?
I think as we're going through the revisions, we need to think about how it affects Chatham's environment. Does it affect our water supply, and does it compromise Chatham's sustainability as we're going through the revisions? And something that we
Yep.
should keep in mind. That is our charge, I believe.
Okay. All right, any comments from the public? I think that's Mr. Litchfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Bill Litchfield here. Is it Dr. Chairman? I never thought about that. That might be the proper way to do it. In any event, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said, I said, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, then I stopped myself and said, is it properly Dr. Chairman? I don't know the answer to that.
Dr. Chairman.
In any event, Bill Litchfield here on behalf of Rich and Jill Tepper, who you will recall applied for variance. And I appreciate your comments this afternoon, just as at the joint meeting with the Select Board. Couple of comments. First of all, Mr. Riley had to leave, and he asked me to convey to you a couple of thoughts. He would urge that the regulation be temporarily suspended. It has, in his opinion, a significant economic impact on owners of two-bedroom homes. And that's sort of a segue into the situation the Tuppers have, because they bought a two-bedroom house with the intent of creating a third bedroom. There are, in terms of Mr. Costello's comments, you know, we're not going to sue the town of Chatham. That's not anything we do. There's not a question, there's a question, I think, as to whether it is legal as opposed to the question of whether the decision was right. For the specific case of the Tuppers, which is how I first came before you, I think that even though I would agree with Dr. Edwards that that problematic sentence should be revised, I think you can grant a variance notwithstanding the language in there that says that it will not be, because the basic regulation says that it's 10,000 square feet per bedroom. So anything that deviates from that is variance. So I think that under the current language, if the Tuppers came before you with the offer to impose a covenant, and Judy and I have been, or a restriction, and Judy and I have been dealing with those for 20-odd years now, I think that the Tupper application to go from 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms could be granted even with the current language. I understand that you're not necessarily inclined to suspend that, as Mr. Riley would indicate or would suggest, but I do want to comment about this as a nitrogen loading regulation. That's the title of the document, as you know, and that's what the first page and a half speaks to. You know what the science is, and I do too, because I spoke to 2 other engineers, not Mr. Clark, who represents the Tuppers, but 2 reputable engineering firms who are familiar with it, and I said, give me the numbers on 2-bedroom versus 3-bedroom, standard versus IA, and depending on the size of the lot, it is an 18 to 20% reduction in nitrogen. With an increased bedroom, there is 20% less nitrogen. So I think that trying to control, you know, the size of houses through a nitrogen loading regulation is questionable. But a variance, you know, could be applied for and granted to serve the purpose of a nitrogen loading regulation, which is to limit nitrogen. So I'd like, if I could, to get an understanding as to whether the board would be receptive toward an application from a 2-bedroom house that wanted to go to a 3 with a covenant in the interim, or should that wait until January or whenever this might happen?
I would say wait till January, because I think we are in the process of getting more information for ourselves and getting more information from the town attorney, so we know exactly where we stand here with our authority and all that. And part of it's what you mentioned about nitrogen loading. Do we have a bigger thing we look at other than just the number, nitrogen? So I would say wait, my own opinion, my own feeling.
That's
And I
fine.
don't think it's, to me, it's not, I don't know their circumstance, but we're just talking about, what, it's 6 weeks till January 1st, so.
Well,
That's the
I would,
holidays,
and
so
thank you,
that-
we can do that. I also appreciate Dr. Edwards' suggestion that comments or suggestions for language be presented to you in writing prior to the hearing, so that you could have a chance to digest them. I think there are some fairly simple changes in the existing nitrogen regulation, nitrogen loading regulation, which could address the issue. And I know there's some concern about, well, if we do it from 2 to 3, what about the people who have 6 and want to go to 7? Realistically, how many are there? There aren't that many. The issue impacts 2-bedroom houses, of which there are a fair number. A 3-bedroom house is sort of the norm. Some people have, 6 bedrooms on 27,000 square feet. Most people don't. And I think it's going to really be critical, and I understand that the short-term rental applications are going live, but
Do we know the number of short-term rentals that have had an increased number of bedrooms by virtue of an IA? I don't.
The town does not even have a
Yeah,
registry of
that-
short-term
I mean,
rentals right now.
I
They
can-
don't have the information.
I-
That's part of
I
what the
do
problem is.
have, I do know that there are about 1,400 short-term rentals based on the
1,400 rentals,
registrations.
right.
When you subtract out bed and breakfasts and inns and such from the
And your
Department of, yeah, so there's about 1,400. I don't know, I couldn't give you a number of how many have IA systems, and we're not asking that question either on our form. So I couldn't tell you that.
But I would say for our future discussions that the two-bedroom issue has been brought up even before our joint meeting and at the joint meeting, and that's something that Dick sort of addressed, and that's something that will be part of the discussion going forward, I think.
Yeah,
We
and
did-
I think it is possible to treat them separately, just as the current regulation speaks to everyone gets two bedrooms and
Right.
differentiates that from one bedroom.
And it may be, and I think if we put that kind of language in, we want to get it reviewed so we can say, oh, yes, we can do that.
Right, because Mr. Clark will tell you that a three-bedroom going to a four-bedroom will put about 20%, will put less nitrogen into the ground. A four-bedroom going to a five-bedroom will put less nitrogen in the ground. A five-bedroom going to a six-bedroom. So to say, that we're making a special case for a two-bedroom simply because the third bedroom doesn't add more nitrogen, and it would be hard for us then to turn down 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, just based on
I think we
that.
could, allow three bedrooms based on the fact that Title V says the minimum size septic system should be designed for three bedrooms. And if you design it for any less than three bedrooms, then you have to deed restrict the house, which we have always done here, and we only allow them to design for the size, that's in our more restrictive subsurface sewage regs. So there is some
Yeah, as
some
Judy says, the
terms in Title V that says your minimum size septic system is for three bedrooms. So I guess their thinking is that that's kind of the minimum size house. But that's not the way we've looked at it in Chatham. I'm just saying that if we move forward where we only considered the 2 to 3 and not the 5 to 6 or whatever, I don't think that could be challenged. I don't know, though.
But we can get reviewed by the town attorney. I think we can, and then we know we're on safe ground, and that's part of the process here.
Yeah.
And he did, the attorney did indicate that he felt like the short-term rental deed restriction was something we could do, and that wouldn't cause any
And he,
problems.
he said the deed restrictions, well, we don't have to get into that, whether it
Yeah,
passes
I mean,
on,
it's something, we just had a brief discussion with him today, and we were really trying to more,
And we'll have-
But there are other issues also, going from 2 to 3 raises the price of the house, makes the house less likely affordable to workers, and we're trying to build affordable housing and, increase the amount of affordable housing. And there's a lot of issues here. I just find it hard to just carve out a two-bedroom house as a whole different set of properties that should get special consideration. But if an owner comes with a variance request with special considerations in it, like the Teppers say, they put a covenant in the deed that it won't become a short-term rental, then that might allow the board to make special consideration. But I think we need to change that sentence from will to might or something, in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think, I see what you're saying. We could be taking these on a case-by-case basis, but we do have to look at, we don't want to set precedents moving forward, so that everybody, now we're right back to where we started from, so.
Sitting here right now, I would say they have a very good argument for being allowed another bedroom with those covenants,
Okay.
but I think we can't do that tonight.
Okay,
We appreciate it. We understand also the concerns that were expressed on the specific case of the Teppers about how the rooms are counted, and when we come back with a floor
Yeah,
plan.
that's
That'll be
the next-
resolved, but that's
next
a
step.
separate issue.
Right. We have a bunch of rules now, there's what we're left with, and, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other comments from the audience? Okay, anybody online needs to make a comment about the nitrogen loading rules, regulations? Okay,
I see none.
all right. Then, I just say briefly, any old business anybody wants to bring up quickly? Or any comments from the public that somebody would like to make? If not, we will go ahead and approve the minutes of,
November 6th.
November 6th, yeah, there they are, of November 6th. Anyone have an addition or a change to make? If not, can I get a motion to
I'll
approve?
move to approve the minutes.
A second?
Second.
And a voice vote to approve the minutes of November 6th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Say no. Hear none. So those are approved. And then I'll take a motion to close the meeting.
So move.
Second?
Okay, we'll take a voice vote to close the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the meeting is closed. You can turn off your mics.